Hey, how's it going, psychology students? Today we're going to pick up where we left off from yesterday. You should have already watched the crash course video on mood disorders. If you haven't, go ahead and do that. There is a link to that in the Canvas page. I showed you how to get there through multiple ways yesterday. Not only is the video available on the discussion page where you'll answer the questions for this lecture, but it's also on the Unit 4 tab in Canvas as well. Or you could look up Crash Course Mood Disorders. I mean, all of these are ways to find it. And I've also noticed that probably only 34 out of the somewhere around 60 psych kids that I have are actually watching these videos. So that being said, I'm going to make the test as hard as I possibly can, because those of you that are watching these notes will do perfectly fine. Those of you that are doing the assignments will do perfectly fine. But those that think they can slack off are going to experience something truly terrible. I don't like it when people are lazy. Not one bit. All right. So there will be discussion questions about this in Canvas. Hopefully you've already found that and you're on that discussion page. Because if you haven't noticed, every day there's a lecture. There's a discussion page in Canvas for you to answer questions with that lecture. And on that discussion, it has a link to the crash course video and this video, and the discussion questions are right there. So most of your day's work is all in one place. If you haven't figured that out by now, you're probably the one emailing me about it, which just puts me in a great mood. You know, everyone always says that your generation's really good with tech. Coming to discover what that really means is you're really good at working apps, and that's about the extent of that. Just like yesterday, there was a worksheet on anxiety disorders, or it normally is a worksheet, and you can actually find that worksheet in Canvas in the Unit 4 tab. But it'd be much simpler for you, I believe, if you just went to your assignments and did the anxiety disorder assignment, which is really just a digitized worksheet. So like yesterday with anxiety disorders, there was one for today's notes as well, titled Bipolar Disorder. Right? So let's get into mood disorders. So a mood disorder is classification disorders where there is a disturbance in the person's emotions. There are 4 major types of disorders. There are several major types of mood disorders. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. It's kind of early in the morning. Major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and dysthymic disorder. And by the way, you do not need to tell people in the comments if you have a disorder. I mean, if you want to, that's your thing, but if it was me, I probably wouldn't. So first of all, we have mania. We want to define mania and depression before we continue. Mania is a period of abnormally high emotion and activity. If you watched the crash course video, he defined that very well, very different. Somebody that has bipolar disorder will experience these episodes of extreme mania where they'll think, something crazy along the lines of like, this is amazing. I'm going to go buy all the textbooks from Penguin House Publishing because I want the penguins to have something to read, and I'm so happy about it. It's extremely happy to the point of which it's like, what's going on, right? I mean, buying all the Penguin books. If you don't know, I can't remember the exact, but it's like Penguin House Publishing or something like that. I feel that's not the right answer, but it's a very big publishing company for college textbooks, so I'm kind of irritated that I'm blanking on the name of it. But anyway, if you watch the Crash Course video, he gave that example of how she was like in an extreme state of mania. She went and bought all these things because she was so happy and she wanted to help out the penguins. She wanted the penguins to be able to read too. So somebody with bipolar disorder will also have these periods of depression, which is an extended period of feeling sad, listless, and drained of energy. All right. So major depressive disorder will be the first disorder we'll get into for mood disorders. Major depressive disorder is defined as a mood disorder in which a person, for no apparent reason, experiences at least 2 weeks of depressed moods, diminished interest in activities, and other symptoms such as feelings of worthlessness. It has to, like, we all experience depression. It's like anxiety. We all have anxiety. But when your depression is more or less without reason for extended period of time, and to the extent of which it is a danger to yourself, you can't function. It prohibits daily function, in life. Then you have major depressive disorder. And of course, you should never self-diagnose. If a psychiatrist or psychologist doesn't officially give you that disorder, then you shouldn't go around labeling yourself with a disorder. That's very inappropriate. Dysthymic disorder is similar to depressive disorder, but is less severe and does not last as long. So obviously would be a lot more common. And I think that this disorder is probably made just to weed out too many people from being labeled with major depressive disorder, because this is another one of those things where people get over-labeled, and a lot of it's because they want to have some kind of excuse or victimhood mentality, which is a real shame because there are people that legitimately have the disorder, and it kind of diminishes those that have the legitimate thing, But people are people. I saw on the news today some idiot heard on the news, President Trump talking about this new experimental drug to fight the coronavirus. And they saw that drug was an ingredient on the aquarium cleaner that they had. One ingredient, an aquarium cleaner. And they drank it. And the husband died and the woman's in the hospital. And they're like, President Trump said this would be okay. We can drink it. You drink aquarium cleaner, you idiot. It's called social Darwinism. It's like Tide Pods. If you're dumb enough to chug a bunch of aquarium cleaner because it has one ingredient, anyway, people are stupid. They just drive me crazy. All right, so bipolar disorder, a mood disorder in which the person alternates between hopelessness and depression, and then the other side, overexcited and unreasonably optimistic state of mania. So 1 second somebody could be very, very deeply depressed, like almost suicidal, and then the next minute, next second, even sometimes, they could be extremely happy, bursting with joy, and very overexcited. Again, we're not just talking about like, oh, they're really happy. We're talking about they're going to like the extent where like they think they can fly almost. Like their mania is so intense. I actually saw a documentary once of somebody with bipolar disorder, and he actually, during one of his manic states, did think he could fly, and he climbed up on top of a gazebo and jumped off of it. Gazebos aren't that tall, so he wasn't hurt, but still. So yeah, it's a pretty intense disorder, one that should not be taken lightly and should not be diagnosed flippantly. And sometimes it is, though. Every semester there's someone that's like, I have bipolar disorder. And I'm like, I've known you for several years. It does not seem to be the case. Again, sometimes, who am I saying? A lot of times, who am I kidding? I think that psychiatrists will diagnose people, or psychologists will diagnose people with something to pay the bills. That's just, I could be wrong, but I don't know. I don't think I am. So the causes of a mood disorder, biological factors. Mood disorders have a heritability nature to them. Depressed individuals tend to have depressed brains, meaning that they work slower. So when somebody's experienced major depressive disorder, we notice that there is a slower amount of activity in the brain. Not to suggest that they are, dumber or anything like that. It just means that even when somebody's just normally depressed, like even a normal, regular person, anybody, the brain works a little bit slower. So what I'm saying is there's actually a physical chemical difference with your brain when you're depressed. So somebody with major depressive disorder, this is going to be more prevalent. So it could actually be a lot of it biological. If you hereditarily have a predisposition towards this slower moving activity in the brain, it could be the brain activity that's causing you to be depressed, hence why it would be unexplained depression, right? So that's when you really are looking at major depressive disorder, right? It doesn't have to be that way, though. It doesn't have to be hereditary. That's the thing about mood disorders a lot of times, other than bipolar disorder. With depression disorders, a lot of them are not permanent. A lot of them you can get through them and find help and get better. My uncle did. When your kid starts acting up in public. Oh, I just started reading the meme. I'm really tired, I guess. I'll kill you. But seriously, though. True, though. Social cognitive factors. Depression may be a variation of learned helplessness, as it was with anxiety disorders. Sometimes a parent will convince a kid because the parent has anxiety or depression. Well, it's hereditary. My kid's going to have it. So they actually end up convincing the kid that they have the disorder, to the extent that the kid, almost like a placebo effect, actually has the disorder because they believe they're supposed to have the disorder. Again, kids are very, and even adults are saying, but kids especially are very susceptible to your suggestion. You have to be careful with what you're pushing on them, right? So anyway, I don't want to get into something that's going to get me in trouble, but just let your kid be kid. Don't try to make them into something that nobody is, like a bobcat. You know what I'm talking about. Depressed individuals attribute events using the following characteristics. Stable, the bad situation will last for a long time. Internal, they are at fault. Global, all of life is bad. And to further accentuate this, there is this chart here. I think this chart's much less confusing. So we have some classic 90s Mortal Kombat fatalities there because I miss the 90s and the early 2000s. I do not miss the Backstreet Boys, but I do miss the 90s and early 2000s before everybody got all sensitive about everything, and now we have the coronavirus. It's like 2020 is just like, oh man. Anyway, so a stable person might think, if you say something you didn't mean, like I do all the time, during notes, you never know what's going to come out. You might think later on, I say things I don't mean when I'm tired. Like I started reading that meme instead of the notes because I'm tired, right? So that is a stable, right? Not associated with depression. That it would be a normal way of thinking. You said something embarrassing, so you think, well, sometimes I say things I don't mean when I'm tired. It's not good that I said it, but, I'm not a terrible person. Somebody associated with depression might think I'm a bad person. And because I said that, I should be deeply ashamed and, I'm just a terrible person. Just horrible. Um, you know, Continuing that example, yesterday was a really bad day. That's why I was just off my game. Tomorrow will be a better day. Depression would be, it's all my fault. Even when it's clearly not your fault. Like, you might even go so far, if you have a severe enough case, you might somehow associate this coronavirus and all this stuff to it being your fault. That's how irrational it can get, right? And that's really not even an over-exaggeration in some cases. A normal person might think, I make mistakes when I rush. Somebody with a lot of depressive issues might think, well, I mess everything up. And by the way, just because if you ever think in the red way, the red bubbles, that doesn't mean that you have major depressive disorder. These are just examples, right, of the social cognitive factors, stable, internal, and global, right? How a normal person would think versus how maybe somebody, if this is over an extended period of time, might think if they had a depressive disorder. And that is the end of Module 21. Tomorrow we will be looking at Module 20. No, what am I talking about? 20. Tomorrow I'll be looking at Module 32. Wow. 32. And we'll be looking at schizophrenia, which is one of the more fascinating disorders and unfortunate disorders, but fascinating nonetheless. And we will start that tomorrow. So make sure that you after watching this in the crash course video, that you do the discussion questions and then do the bipolar disorder assignment in Canvas as well. So you really have two things to do. These discussion questions after watching the two videos, and then the bipolar assignment. And that's really what you had yesterday for anxiety disorders as well. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.